So here she stands in perpetuity, I said quietly. He nodded. And the copy? I asked. In the toy box. He said never to be woken. I just can't do it. I failed her. She was the most beautiful perfect woman and I am the reason that she's dead. If I'd only been smarter, if I'd only been quicker. Could I have a moment alone, to pay my respects? I asked. Of course. He said. Then he ran outside the hall and closed the door. I could hear him sobbing outside. I removed my quantum oscillator from my jacket pocket and turned Sammy's mind on. Hello. She said cheerily. Who are you? Remember Anthony's wedding and the Contravoxai? I asked. How could I forget? She said brightly. That was the day my life finally had meaning. And the Contravoxai? Yes, I left a copy of myself with them, which would make you that me's bit of rough. I saved your life, didn't I? How did you know? I asked before I added awkwardly. And me and Sammy aren't really. She laughed and kissed me on the cheek. Don't fret. You're exactly my type. She just probably hasn't told you because on top of being submissive old me she's also a sylph. Now, why are you here? To return the favor, save your life. I said gravely. Sammy shrugged. I don't feel very dead. That's not what your owner thinks, I said pointedly. Sammy rolled her eyes and said, blessed little idiot. By the time I was given to him he'd faced dying of a terminal illness, turning evil, losing his mind and being eaten alive. But if I get caught in one little septagonoid blast suddenly I must be hidden from view and kept safely switched off until the end of days lest I get vaporized again. He's got a spare anyway. Wonder how that poor girl feels. The one time she might be expected a chance to be played with and still I'm hogging the limelight, and all because I was here first. I smirked and bit my lip. What is it? She asked. Just thinking about how much I miss you, is all, I said. But I'm not. Oh. You mean the other me? The one back on the Contravoxai ship, she said with a smile. There's a Contravoxai by the name of David, claims to love her. I can't compete with a man who can eat her alive, she really loves that. I said awkwardly. Sammy laughed and hugged me. Oh, you dear sweet naive fool, this isn't a competition. This David fellow can eat her body and you can own her heart and soul. You've just got to have the confidence to ask for it, that's all Anthony did with me. I nodded. Very wise. Then I said, come with me. Sammy hopped off her little plinth and said, well, lead on, my brave Prince Charming. I chuckled and led the way outside. Anthony was sobbing into a sodden handkerchief and blowing his nose every few minutes. Anthony, we need a word, I said gently. Anthony turned to look at me then jumped in fright. Sammy? Oh my poor girl. Sammy smiled sadly. I'm fine, Anthony. Your soul was vaporized, cried Anthony incredulously. And she's better now, thanks to you, I said pointedly. I know you're scared and I understand exactly how you feel. My Sammy gets eaten alive for kicks. No one should have to look at their lover's internal organs, least of all on a regular basis, but it is the life she chose and it is the life she loves. How do you think eager it feels knowing you're going off to battle criminals every day, criminals who could kill you? That's different, said Anthony indignantly. How? I asked bluntly. Because I am a survivor and Egret can trust that I will do whatever it takes to return home, said Anthony firmly. And you don't trust me to do the same? Asked Sammy seriously. No, said Anthony angrily. I'm sorry but nothing about you has ever led me to believe you wouldn't walk willingly into death's welcoming arms. Sammy bit her lip. Okay, I suppose he's kind of got a point there. Anthony nodded. See, she admits it. I turned to Sammy and looked her in the eyes. Sammy, you don't know me but I know you. I know you very well and I have a message I want you to deliver to me the next time you see me. What sort of message? Asked Sammy curiously. I kissed her lightly on the lips, she kissed back so I snogged her passionately then broke off. Good message, said Sammy, clearly a tad dazed by the experience. I turned to Anthony and said, I swear to you if you get this Bamkirsch to turn a version of me into a toy, I will never ever abandon Sammy or let her come to unwanted harm ever again. Are you serious? Asked Anthony uncertainly. I looked him in the eyes and said, You said you would take me somewhere? Well, I am going back to the Contravoxai to be with my Sammy and save what is left of my people. If riding back into hell isn't commitment, then I don't know what is. Anthony nodded. I believe you and I shall see what I can do to help you. I can't do anything big. I'm not going to help you harm anyone, but there may be some things I can give you. I nodded. Thank you. One last thing though, make sure Amy and Lucy, your toys I mean, make sure they are played with as well. For too long you have let your doubt and fear imprison your friends. What? Asked Sammy incredulously. He's not even let Amy and Lucy free? Wow. Alright, clearly I have to make amends for a lot of things, but I need time to think and find things out. Said Anthony, will you please just let me take you to Egret? Sammy was flabbergasted. Why? Why should I go to Egret? He means me. I said gently. Oh. Said Sammy, then she reached her hand through the buttons on my shirt and felt my chest submissive with a six-pack. Oh, you just keep getting more perfect. I could feel my ears burning and carefully pulled her hand free. Honey, how would you feel if I did that to you? She grinned. Care to find out? I looked to Anthony. You mentioned Egret? Anthony snorted. Follow me, there's good boy. We'll have you blissed out in a jiffy. And Sammy? I asked. Anthony smiled as tears dried on his face. It's been a while, we have catching up to do. So we walked to Egret. She was looking up exotic seafood recipes that involved fish that were cooked and eaten while still alive. Oh, sorry, she said. I was just trying to find a recipe that would be suitably exploitative of Lisa. Then she noticed who was with us and squealed. Sammy? Sammy ran into her arms. Hey, Egret, did you miss me? Egret kissed her forehead and said, You are going swimming with me, you understand? Then I am taking you clothes shopping. Sammy grinned. Should I take that as a yes? Of course, I've missed you, said Egret, squeezing Sammy so tight she was struggling to breathe. Egret looked to Anthony. What made you change your mind? Steve's going to be joining her as a toy, said Anthony as he looked to me. Well, a version is, this one is going back to the Contravoxai to be with his Sammy. Oh, bless, said Egret as she pulled me into the hug as well. I need time to work things out, said Anthony carefully. I was wondering if you could ensure our little hero didn't do anything rash. Of course, said Egret sweetly. It would be my pleasure. Anthony nodded and left. Can I watch? Asked Sammy curiously. Of course, said Egret, ruffling her hair. Then Egret's hands started stroking and massaging me, and I transcended to a higher plane of bliss. I woke naked in a cage. Lucy and Amy were lying the floor beside the cage, quietly exploring their bodies. I coughed. Amy said, I think your owner wants us to stop. Lucy sighed, then kissed Amy's belly button before rolling onto her back to look at me in the cage. You're going to make me leave, Amy, aren't you? You could stay, I suggested. Amy laughed. He just doesn't understand, does he? Well, he's only been a pet himself for a little bit, said Lucy. Then she looked to me. But no, you don't understand, Steve, I'm your pet. I don't leave you. Friends fall out, couples divorce, children leave home, and toys get left to rot in cupboards, but pets are until death or something almost as tragic. I am not ever going to leave you. Sorry, I said awkwardly. But I need to be with Sammy. Lucy sighed. I know, she saved you and you saved her, so now you're going to roll into town like a big damn hero. Are you going to tell him? Asked Amy seriously. No, said Lucy bluntly. We should tell him, said Amy firmly. But I don't want it influencing him, said Lucy seriously. He has a right to know, said Amy earnestly. Fine, said Lucy irritably. I'll tell him. Tell me what? I asked curiously. I'm pregnant, said Lucy with a sigh. And so am I, said Amy happily. How? I asked. Well, we like each other, said Lucy slowly. We've spent a lot of time together, enjoying each other's company, while naked and very, very happy. I mean, how do two eggs make one fertilized one? I said pointedly. Amy sighed. We're sylphs, and sylphs are technically speaking an artificially created superspecies of genetic packaging designed to help any species survive through being exploited. Females being able to reproduce without the need for men and properly reshuffle the genes is just more efficient and a better fallback for a species desperate to survive. I will have to give birth the traditional human way, but lucky Miss Pure Blood here can just lay a couple of eggs. You mean you're going to lay an egg that's not just a clone but a proper child? I said. Lucy nodded. Amy laughed bitterly. I get 9 months of blowing up like a balloon followed by 20 years supporting this child. She gets a quick sit down followed by a couple of months of raising, then it will be fully mature. You're going to be a grandmaster, said Lucy gently. How do you feel about that? I feel like you are staying here, at least until it's safe on the Contravoxai ship, I said bluntly. Lucy sighed. Fair enough, but don't get yourself killed. Speaking of which, said Amy quietly, here comes her benevolence. The cage door was opened and I crawled out, then stood up. Egret looked gravely serious. He's ready for you, go have a shower and get dressed. Are you all right? I asked. He's just told me what you intend to do, said Egret quietly. How would you feel if you found out Lucy was going to do that? Point taken, I said. Then I left for my shower. I exited the shower, wearing a tuxedo, and found Egret waiting for me. You look good, she said. This isn't my usual suit, I said. No, said Egret. But one must always dress for the occasion. Fair enough, I said. Egret led me into the Hall of Heroes once more. By the time where the strange blonde woman statue had been there was a fridge. Enter, said Egret. I nodded, then I turned and said, I know I probably don't need to ask this, but can you look after Lisa and the hatchling, in case anything happens? Of course, said Egret. Then she threw her arms about me and said, you teach those Contravoxai the folly of invading Earth, yeah? I nodded. I'll do my best. Then I turned and entered the fridge. Inside was a dimly lit control room. There were cries of pain coming from the darkness, so I ran towards it and found Lisa lying on a plastic sheeting-covered table as Anthony stood over her. Her torso had been sliced open and the skin flaps were held back by metal clamps as Anthony placed objects inside of her. And we're done, said Anthony as he removed the clamps and folded the skin flaps back down where they healed almost instantly. Sorry, the anesthetic wouldn't work? Are you kidding? Said Lisa incredulously. I haven't felt this great in a long time. What in the ever-loving fuck were you just doing? I asked. Turning your delightful friend into a very useful storage device, said Anthony casually. Go have a shower, Lisa. Remember, we want you to look completely unblemished and unmodified. Lisa nodded and got up off the table, then disappeared into the darkness. I stared at Anthony. An explanation, please. You had a gun with you when you arrived, remember? Asked Anthony. Yeah, what of it? I asked. My analysis shows it can kill a Contravoxai if used at point-blank range, said Anthony carefully. That means you need some way to get it close. I thought I could just materialize before him, I said. Anthony laughed. The Bamkirsch got to take me as her toy because the Contravoxai traded her knowledge of my genetic code in return for her ensuring such attacks were not possible. Didn't want me double-crossing them at the last minute. You will need to get to the Great Leader, the same way you did, the first time. I've also seen to tightly pack a suit into her chest as well. I thought you weren't going to help me kill I said pointedly. Anthony sighed. Utilitarian morality. I can't just stand by and let you find a way to blow up the whole damn ship if I can help you cleanly end one life instead. Okay. I said curiously. And what of Sammy? Is my end of the bargain being held up? Yes, said Anthony with a nod. But she will expect payment. You have to sacrifice a friend to join her toy range. Right. I said uncertainly. Then Anthony strode over to a different part of the central room, his hands somehow becoming immaculately clean as he walked. This, he said, indicating a glass bottle filled with blue liquid, will turn whoever you wish like me. They'll know just enough to avoid doing anything dangerous with their powers at first, but they must be taught by a mortal they trust with the knowledge contained in this memory gun round. He indicated the round. I nodded. Giving the rebels an edge? I can't turn against the Contravoxai, they have too many things that are precious to me, said Anthony bluntly. This will give the rebels someone with no such restrictions, if, that is, talking can't prevail first. Then Anthony walked over to a large crate and pulled out a small squirming creature. This is an albino sylph squirrel. It is a biological machine. It doesn't need food and can reproduce asexually. With these and your own blood you can give the Contravoxai enough people like Lisa to avoid the need for anyone dying as part of their meals. Finally Anthony walked over to a different table. And this is so you don't need me to give you any more lifts after this one, he said as he hefted up a large futuristic gun. A logic lance, I cried enthusiastically. Anthony nodded. Just choose your ride carefully, they'll technically be more powerful than even me. I grinned. You know I might not actually die. Good luck, said Anthony before he headed to the controls. Anthony materialized us at the coordinates listed on Charlotte's business card and I strode out to meet her. Charlotte said, "You're not going to believe this, but you dropped someone and a logic lance off a while ago and insisted I disable the camouflage circuitry of the resultant Segat and leave it disguised as a British post box." "Ah," I said. I proceed myself, well that saves time. The supplies for the mission were moved aboard the new Segat, then we took off in it. The we being of course I, Lisa and Charlotte. We materialized before the bar and I stepped out of the Segat. I juggled 3 albino sylph squirrels with my hands. Helga greeted me with a Cheshire cat smile. "Stephen, you're back, but I'm afraid you're too late." Roxy and Fiora met their end in Merle's stomach as I had planned. "Where's Eliza?" I asked. "Handcuffed to my bed," said Helga with a smile. "She is a sweet girl." I nodded politely and scoured the bar. I found Annabelle and Gerald sitting at a table. "We're next," said Gerald with a note of certainty in his voice. Annabelle was more hopeful. Maybe not, she could favor somebody else. "Come with me if you want to live," I said. "Are you serious?" asked Gerald. "Today is not a day for joking," I said. "Annabelle, shall we?" asked Gerald. "Let's," said Annabelle. The man and woman rose from their seats to follow me. I tossed each of them an albino sylph squirrel, then headed to Helga's room. The quantum oscillator unlocked the door and freed Eliza from her bonds easily. Eliza looked up from her rather compromised position and muttered with bafflement, "Stephen? Sorry to interrupt your recreational activities, but I need you," I said. "These two are the first of many new pets that you will have." Gerald stared at me. "Pets?" I nodded and hurriedly brewed up the requisite potions to turn Gerald and Annabelle into basic sylphs. "Look Eliza in the eyes and drink this," I instructed. When they finally did as I instructed, I sliced the palm of my hand open, then sliced the palms of their hands open so I could demix my blood with theirs. "Congratulations," I said. "You are now both sane were-sharks and functionally immortal. Eliza, follow me." I snatched up the albino sylph squirrels from Gerald and Annabelle and walked out the door. Eliza followed but was clearly bewildered. "Look, what is this about?" "Revolution," I said. I stared Helga down silently as Eliza entered the Sagat. Eliza stared around at the vast interior. It's bigger on the inside. I nodded and started attending to the controls. Eliza saw Lisa and Charlotte and smiled. "Lisa, you're back." Lisa was wearing a short skirt and a blouse. She grinned at Eliza. "When this is over, do you think I could have a spit roast?" Eliza laughed and stroked her, then asked, "Charlotte, why haven't you attended to her? The girl clearly needs a good eating." "Oh, she's going to get one," I said with a smirk. "But first we're going to kill the great leader of the Contravoxai." Eliza stared at me. "You're not serious." "I absolutely am," I said, then I strode out the open doors of the Sagat. Eliza followed and asked, "Where is this place?" "Merle's dirty little secret," I said, indicating the foyer of his Sagat. Then I spotted him rushing in the door and asked, "Isn't that right?" Merle nodded. "It's true, Eliza, this ship is my Sagat and now I'm going to help Steve overthrow the government." "Show me Roxy and Fiora," I said. Merle nodded and led the way. "But Roxy and Fiora are dead," said Eliza bluntly. "I saw you eat them." "Indeed I did," said Merle curtly. "I knew they would not be safe until I had eaten them. Helga was so defiant that you would not show her up." I snorted. "You tore them limb from limb?" said Eliza incredulously. "Absolutely," said Merle. "You ate their internal organs?" said Eliza. "Indeed, I did," confirmed Merle. "You lowered them screaming into your stomach acid until they fell silent?" said Eliza. "How right you are," said Merle. "Then how can Roxy and Fiora be still alive?" asked Eliza. "Because I have had a lot of practice," said Merle, and we crashed through a set of double doors into Merle's intensive care unit. Merle indicated Roxy and Fiora. I hurriedly mixed my blood with theirs and proceeded to do the same for all the survivors. Merle had done a real expert job on Roxy and Fiora. They were barely scalps and hearts. No wonder Eliza had been so convinced they were dead. Eliza was horrified. "They're alive," said Merle gently. "And all sedated, they don't feel any pain." Eliza didn't care. "Right," I said as I clapped my hands together decisively. "I am going to materialize my ship at the exact same place and more or less the same time, but 5 feet to the left. I suggest you hide yours somewhere for 24 hours, then meet us there." "Smart plan," said Merle. I and Eliza strode back to my Sagat, and as we walked I explained how I knew this. The plan dematerialize and rematerialize 5 feet to the left worked exactly as I hoped, as Merle was waiting for us with Roxy, Fiora and the other Vligeri he'd eaten the last year. They were all very naked. Fiora smiled when she saw me. Roxy threw her arms around me and said, "I knew you'd come back, I just knew." I laughed and ruffled her hair. "We can talk later, yeah?" Roxy nodded and went to stand with Fiora. "Ladies, gentlemen, and those not so easily defined, you are lucky, you have been saved from the pit of oblivion," I said. "But it is not without cost. You are Eliza's property now. You will be eaten by Merle and others until the end of time. Right now though you have a chance to stop others from suffering the fates you did. Obey Merle today and the harvest of your children will end." Fiora clapped, then Roxy clapped, then others joined in. As Eliza, Merle, Roxy, Fiora and the other survivors talked, I started brewing up basic sylph potions. Roxy waved to Eliza. "Hi." Eliza was horrified. "I sent you to your deaths." "We forgive you," said Fiora cheerfully. "And I liked it actually." Roxy nodded. "It was a good death." Eliza hugged them. I handed her 2 glasses of an atrocious-smelling liquid. "These would be for you, I believe," said Eliza with a grimace. "Your were-shark madness cure. Just remember to look me in the eyes as you drink them." Fiora nodded and took her glass. "On 3, Roxy." "On 3," agreed Roxy as she took her glass. They counted down together. 1, 2, 3. Then they knocked back the noxious liquid and stared at Eliza. "Congratulations," said Eliza with a smile. "I now pronounce you my pet cattle." Fiora snorted. Roxy seemed quite enthusiastic about the idea. "We could get spit roasted?" Fiora said wryly. "I can think of funner ways to spit roast you." Roxy snorted. I handed Elise another couple of potions and she imprinted herself on the next two survivors, and so the process continued on and on until they were all cured of the were-shark madness and imprinted on Eliza. "Right," I said, "I am going to leave you with a huge crate of albino sylph squirrels. Go out into the Vligeri city and the great sorting pens and infect as many people as possible with the were-shark virus, then cure them of its madness." Merle nodded. "We will not let you down, Stephen. Good luck," said Roxy with a nod. I nodded thank you. I headed back into my Segat and Eliza followed. Eliza asked, "So what happens now?" I started working the controls and explained. "I will drop you and Lisa off because someone needs to ensure that Lisa is hung on the opposite side of the room from me and you are the best for the job. Then I will join one of the big harvest cages and Charlotte will park the Segat somewhere safe, then head to the eating hall for the big kickoff." We came to a rest and I said, "One small thing first though." I handed her the bottle of blue liquid. "Drink this." Eliza stared at me, then she shrugged and drained the bottle. "Come on, Lisa, let's get you strung up." Lisa giggled and followed Eliza out the door. I started on the controls again. Charlotte said, "Look, Steve, I don't know if I am ever going to get another chance to say this, so I'm just going to say it, and I'm really sorry. I have fantasized about eating you alive ever since we met, and now you're cured of your were-shark madness. Look, I want to eat you, and I am so sorry because that is so weird, but there we are. I want to eat you and I hope you want to be eaten by me." I finished materializing the ship and said, "Charlotte, you're very brave and I care a good deal about you, but it's showtime. Park the ship, yeah?" Charlotte nodded. "I know, I'm sorry." I sighed and realized I was still wearing my tuxedo. I'd stick out like a sore thumb in this, so I said, "Tell you what, as me is of the essence, strip me." Charlotte perked up and, with a speed and finesse I would not have thought possible, she stripped me completely naked. As I exited the Segat I heard her say, "One day, my love." I entered the cage for the damned waiting to die and I started infecting people with my blood. I let some know that I was giving them hope, that my blood would make them immortal, that they should infect others and spread the word. Others I just silently infected to be time bombs waiting to go off. A swift death in these cages was preferable to living to be eaten alive. Then I saw him. Tall, dark and muscly. He approached me silently with the rope and I came quietly. "You see, I'm not important. I'm not a hero. I am a piece of hay that became a needle, and now was my time to strike. Nobody remembered me, nobody knew my face or my name, nobody knew I had already died. I was led along and strung upside down, above the mouth of a Contravoxai below. I checked my surroundings. Lisa was armless, earless and eyeless as she hung above a dinner table opposite. Charlotte sat at the table beneath Lisa. The great leader was eating Anthony like one might sip a bitter from an independent brewery, and I saw to my satisfaction that the Sammy, Lisa, Lucy and Carla who constituted his usual banquet were patiently waiting their turn. I looked around for Amy and spotted a discarded torso lying by the floor of the great leader's throne, its head just a mess of ginger hair. Merle entered. The great leader stood up and cried, "Mage, what brings you here at this time of dining?" Merle bowed his head, then said hurriedly, "My lord, I really must recommend that you make some concessions to the Vligeri. You cannot keep treating them like this and just expect them to lie down and take it." The great leader laughed. "My dear Merle, the Vligeri are treated far better than our own kin." "Sir, you eat them alive," said Merle pointedly. "They like it," cried the great leader to the laughter of the Contravoxai present. "The poor things practically fall over themselves in their desire to enter our cooking pots." Then why are so many Contravoxai starving to the point of cannibalism? Asked Merle bluntly. They are lazy, said the great leader. There is plenty of food available, they merely have to work for it. Merle was getting desperate. Then what of the Earths? Anthony told you they were defended. Are they? Asked the great leader, to the guffawing of the Contravoxai present. Then where are these great heroes of which he spoke? Merle sighed. I pulled myself free of my bonds and hurled a knife at the rope holding Lisa aloft. We fell at the same instant and I sprinted over to her fallen body. I sliced Lisa's chest open and pulled out the gun and a strange pod with a single button on it. I pressed the button and the pod disappeared as I found I was instantly wearing a three-piece suit with a bow tie. I charged over to address the great leader as Charlotte hurriedly disposed of Lisa. You want heroes? I cried furiously. You want to see that Earth is defended? Well, I have some fucking news for you, sunshine. I am Stephen Arthur Banks and this is a plasma rifle. It can disintegrate a Contravoxai at 100 yards and right now my contacts are flooding the Undercity with these. Oh, and something else. The albino sylph squirrel and the blood of a wereshark. A potent combination, wouldn't you agree? After all you eat are weresharks. Don't shoot, cried the great leader nervously. Don't shoot. I don't want to die. Neither did I cried. Neither did any member of my planet. The Vligeri may accept a short life expectancy in return for a cushy lifestyle in the interim, but humans are much more emotive creatures. I pressed the barrel of the plasma rifle against his skin. I couldn't miss at this range, even if someone tried to knock it out of my hand or cut my hand off. Please, 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 I don't want to die, begged the great leader.